Seth Levit, OJ McDuffie. Great stories these guys get out of former Dolphins coaches, all that type of stuff. Fantastic conversation. You can also hear Seth on the post-game show with Travis Wingfield and OJ McDuffie. They do a great job here on your flagship station for Miami Dolphins football. And he is joining us now on the Toyota of Hollywood guest line. Shop over 1,500 toys indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. Hey, Seth, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great. I didn't realize the camera was going to be all up in my face like this. So this is a whole different experience. I get told all the time, face for radio, and you guys are messing up the plan here.
Listen, man, we're trying to get with the times. We're trying to get a little bit more up with it. So we've been doing this for a while now, and it's exciting to have you, man. Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Although, where'd Leroy go? He's out to be here in this segment. I'm not talking to Seth or about Dolphins.
You know what's funny, Seth? He's actually, when I told him you were coming on today, he's actually coincidentally, he's wearing his JT ping pong shirt today.
Is he? So,
I was like, that is a strange.
He's not here.
He'll be here. I don't know where he is. He's always. See, here's the thing. We finally got him back to the studio with the new time slot.
Yeah.
And it's like, one of the things that was a staple of Leroy being here is he likes to peruse the hallways and he likes to chit chat. And so with him chit chatting, you never know when he's going to come back there in a segment. So that's what.
I'm just glad. I was like, I got to tell you, and I've been raised not to take it personally. You can't work in or around the NFL as long as I can and take yourself too seriously. But I said, I'm watching that last segment. You're talking about the Russians and getting up and going to the bathroom. Yes. And then you call me on and Leroy's gone. Like, I'm like, what? Come on, man. But you know what? You're wearing the ping pong shirt. So a lot of love there.
That's what everybody said. Hey, that's a ping pong shirt. Do you ever not wear free shirts? I'm like, I just go into my drawer and pull a shirt out.
I'm wearing one right now. I'm just calling it work.
The ping pong tournament is always a great time. Seth, thought, what was your reaction out for this? I feel like, you can't have a lot of hope in a game when you're bringing in your third string quarterback after one snap, but they were kind of in it and then the wheels fell off. So, I mean, how are you doing a couple days after what went down against the New York Jets? And, what should be, I guess, the feeling going into this week?
Well, listen, I guess a lot to cover there. First and foremost, you're right. That quarterback position's the hardest position to play in all of sports. And look, Skylar is, I think, a 25-year-old rookie. So he is mature in years, I guess, for a rookie quarterback. But at the end of the day, he's a first-year quarterback in this league. And yes, that's a tall order. But at the same time, he's on a roster. And Leroy will be the first one to tell you, is like, I don't care where you were drafted. I don't care what year you are. Once you've made this roster, you've taken a spot from somebody else who's trying to feed their family. The expectation is that you've got to play like a pro. And I will say I'm impressed by the kid. I think he's shown maturity beyond his years. I don't think the game is too big for him. I think that he is very professional. I loved hearing him post-game. He's like, I'm excited to get in the film room and see what I did wrong, how I can improve. I think he's got the right makeup, but he is still a first-year quarterback. We've seen guys drafted in the top 10 not be ready, so to speak. And to your point, regardless of what needed to be fixed, a rough outing, as we heard Coach McDaniel call it, there was some throws he probably wish he had gotten out sooner or, had put him somewhere differently. He threw a rope when they were in a position to go ahead in the fourth quarter of that game, which is all you can ask. And he threw a rope there to Tanner Connor, who couldn't hold on to it. And, and then the penalty, they missed a field goal, and then the wheels certainly did fall off. And I don't blame Skylar Thompson for the fact that they gave up 21 points in that fourth quarter. There were some things he contributed to, but I think he could have used a little help from his teammates.
Hold on. First of all, what do you give me these looks for, Leroy?
I'm having a conversation with my friend Seth.
Okay, fine.
So we've been getting into it for the last 2 days.
Okay.
Because he just thinks that a rookie quarterback is supposed to come in and hold down the fort and not screw it up. And I'm like, what makes him a young quarterback is the fact that you're playing with fire to think he's not going to screw up at some point.
Right.
And it's just a learning. Look, quarterbacks have to learn when they can throw the ball, when they can't, how quick they have to get it out versus certain looks versus that. He's learning on the fly, so he's going to make mistakes.
I'm not saying he can't make mistakes. All I'm saying was, I was expecting a little bit more because
Why?
I'll explain why. Because Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel sat on a podium and they said, we got calls from around the league that said, you'd be an idiot to get rid of this guy. So
Well, I think that's true, though, Tobin. I think that's true.
Is,
like,
but I was expecting a little bit more. And yes, I don't know why Tanner Connor was playing all of a sudden. That was very strange that he was playing in a critical situation. But I don't know. I was just, I was expecting not a disaster, Seth. And I felt like we got a disaster. He's look, he got two receivers wide open. He gets completely, plastered, and Quinn Williams is nearly killing Tyreek Hill. I mean, I was hoping for it not to be a time bomb, and that's what I felt like I was watching on Sunday.
Hey, if y'all want to know how much Tyreek weighs, just look at that. Not much. Not
he
much.
can do almost anything on the field, but that's not what we're asking him to do. I think disaster is harsh. I think, I agree with both you guys to an extent, and how very PR guy Switzerland of me here. But yes, a young quarterback is absolutely going to make mistakes. There are going to be growing pains. There's a reason why he's the number 3 guy on the roster. There's a reason that he's in that in that slot. And I'm glad that he was there because, when Teddy goes out in one play, which is a whole other conversation I don't want to get into, when Teddy goes out in one play, at least you had a guy who could go up there and you could play the game. I mean, he still looked to me like an NFL quarterback who was learning on the fly, who was making mistakes, and your team was in position to go ahead in the fourth quarter. And I don't think that, you can't lose sight of that. You also can't have 9 missed tackles for over 100 yards. You can't turn the ball over twice, which clearly he's got to take some credit for that. And you got to make your field goals when you're in a position to go ahead.
Definitely.
You have to make those.
Why can nobody in Florida tackle?
I don't have an answer there.
But I was kidding about that. But here's truthfully, what's going on with Gesicki?
Yeah.
Is it they want him to be a different tight end than he's capable of being? Because look, the whole thing behind him is that when he came into the league, they basically played him in the slot.
Right.
And the way Mike McDaniel uses his tight end is a lot of motion in the backfield, chipping, lead blocking, and stuff like that. Where does that leave Gesicki? Because, technically you have a lot of guys that does what he does outside of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
Right. Yeah, it's a fair question, and I think that we won't know the answer until you get to see a full season here and then what they do next year. I mean, they franchised him, so they saw value there. I think you hear Coach McDaniel talking about getting the best out of every player. Certainly, he's got Coach Embry is going to expect the best out of his tight ends. I think he was pretty upfront in his most recent media availability, and did not mince words in at all. And look, they know that he can make plays in the passing game. We certainly saw he cut in that was it in the comeback against Baltimore, whatever that touchdown that he caught.
Yeah,
he went,
up high. Yeah.
There's only a few guys in this league that can make that play, but
True.
But they're not expecting that every week. They all do have other expectations of their tight ends. They did sign the guy to, he's making a lot of money this year with that franchise deal. Obviously, I'm sure he wanted a long-term deal, and at some point he'll get one. But I think they see someone that is supremely talented, is incredibly athletic, and they were going to try and see if they could mold him into a tight end that fits in the system. And, the jury's still out.
You had to put some rock in his pocket.
Yeah,
he's not built like Gronk or Kittles.
Well, no, and not many
Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But they expect him to play like that. You better go ahead on and introduce him to some weights.
Yeah. Well, the one thing they do keep saying is they expect guys to play to the best of their ability. And so what they determine that is, I mean, Leroy, they talk about what your ideal playing weight is, and that's different for every player. And, who knows who's making that decision. So they've determined whatever that barometer is and whatever that measuring stick is that Mike Gesicki has to get to. And I don't think they feel that he's reached it yet. And, time will tell if they feel he can get there or not.
Talking to Seth Levit, co-host of the Fish Tank podcast. You can also hear him post-game with OJ McDuffie. Travis Wingfield do a great job here on the Dolphins Radio Network. I wanted to ask you something PR-wise, Seth, because Mike McDaniel, he's very thorough in his media availability. Like, he really tries to – he's going to try and cover everything with whatever question you give him. You have a smooth 3 weeks. Everything's going great. And, he's all this singular focus on football. And then you have all of this dropped in your lap of learning protocols and learning medical stuff and all the. How do you think that weighs on a rookie head coach? Just having to cover your base because you want to have the appearance that you care for your players, which I genuinely do think he does. He seems like a pretty genuine dude. But I got to imagine that's a lot of stress to also throw on your plate on top of, hey, I also have to get ready for the Vikings this week.
Yeah, and I can only talk in general terms because I don't have the privilege of. We got to sit down with Mike McDaniel and have him on the podcast, but beyond that, I've never had a conversation with him personally. But just observing and having sat in that PR seat, look, there's a lot to manage for any coach. Bill Belichick had some interesting conversations about injuries and the way he handled them, and he did things that guys who don't have 7 Super Bowl rings probably couldn't get away with. Coaches want to coach ball. That's what they want to do. And their entire lives, they've been coaching ball. And then you get to this one of 32 positions in the entire world, and you just have to do a million other things that you wish you didn't have to do because you just want to go down and break down film and coach ball. I think he's doing an incredible job. He does come across genuine. He is certainly thorough. I think he's really transparent, maybe even more transparent than he needs to be in those press conferences. And I hope that media members are appreciating that. Having to make decisions on players and concussions and all of these different things. And then the protocols are changing on you from week to week. There's a lot there to manage. I think he is cut out for it. There were some questions coming in for those of us who didn't know him. To me, none of it seems too big for him. He is learning on the fly. But what I love is that he'll tell you that, like, yeah, how could I ever know how to do these things until I have a chance to do them? I think he'll tell you if he feels he made a mistake. I think he's been steadfast in his belief that his team handled things the right way. And if anybody questions that he cares for his players, either you're just the ultimate cynic or you're not watching closely enough. So I think you're getting everything that you can ask for there, but it's going to be a learning curve. It's definitely going to be a learning curve, but he seems also excited to learn. He wants his players to learn. Yeah. He talks about how, we should be playing our best ball at the end of the season, not in week 3. I love hearing that because that's a fact. He didn't get overexcited with 3 wins. I don't think he's panicking with 2 losses. And I think he relishes the opportunities to learn and to overcome adversity. And, again, we're 5 weeks into this thing. I don't think, you can't get too high or too low after 5 weeks.
Right. Seth, have you watched every football game now and watch the quarterback and see what roughing the passer is now?
Yeah, like, I gave up on that.
Right. Wait, Tom Brady got laid down like he was taking a nap. Tua got slung to the ground. One was a penalty and one wasn't. And it wasn't the one where the guy got concussed.
Yeah, and look, you first of all, you shouldn't play the result as to whether something's a penalty or not. To me, that's maybe a different sport that Tobin happens to like a lot, and I love the NBA as well. But I think in football, you can't play the result. And we did see, I think there was a play this past week where there was a pass interference that came in after they played it on the, they played it on the Jumbotron and then the flag came in. I think that's pretty crazy. If you're playing pickup basketball, like if you make the call too late, you don't get your call, right? So, but as far as, and look, I work for a pass rusher. So, there's nothing there that's roughing the passer in my boss's eyes. And I honestly, I didn't think either of those, the hit that Tua unfortunately did get hurt on, and certainly not the Tom Brady hit. I didn't think either of those were based on the rules that I've read or seen or the way they've called games. But you would like to see some consistency. I think that's the bottom line. Whatever the rules are, we don't get to make the rules. Everybody has to play by them. We have to accept them as fans or media members, but just have some level of consistency across the board.
You want to be able to watch a game and go, that's a penalty, and it be a penalty.
Right.
It reminds me
you play, we've watched this game forever, and we don't even know anymore.
I feel like it's every year. Like I remember we went through the controversy of what's a catch? What is a catch?
What's a catch? Right.
All the way to the ground. What is it? And I don't know.
And they've moved the goalposts on that too, Toby.
Right. And now it's moved to roughing the passer. I don't know. I don't know anymore.
The Saints guy that got T-boned on the sidelines.
It's crazy.
And the official standing right there, like, You didn't see nothing?
Yeah, you'd like
Hey,
to
so-
see some consistency on the calls.
I
I
would-
I know for obvious reasons the concussion thing has been a big conversation. I think it's great that they're looking out for player safety. Again, you want to see some consistency there. And
What
if they're
you're
erring
trying
on
to
the
do,
side of
though-
conservatism, we just got to get used to it.
What you're trying to do, though, has limits in the fact that you play a physical and aggressive sport. And,
Right.
and you have to be honest with yourself about that. You know, for example, how can a guy who has a strip sack and a fumble get penalized for roughing the passer when he has the ball on top of the quarterback?
It's nuts.
It's crazy.
It's
I
nuts.
wish I had an answer for you, but I'm not that guy.
I
Seth,
don't.
what do you got coming up this week on the Fish Tank?
Yeah, so new episode dropped today. Pretty cool for us. So it's Dave Shula, the oldest son in the Shula family there.
Mhm.
And for those who have been longtime Dolphin fans, you've certainly had a chance to follow Dave Shula's journey. I would almost say growing up down here, the Shulas were kind of like the Royals. We see everything that's going on in England. The Shulas were the
Yeah.
Royals in South Florida. And so you saw Dave Shula when he was a child. It was pretty cool. He talked about being a ball boy. I mean, how cool would it be as a 13-year-old to be a ball boy for the Miami Dolphins in general? But imagine if you're a ball boy for a perfect season, and so he tells stories about being a ball boy, talks about his dad wanting to have him around. We just want to know what was there's so many stories about Coach Shula calling people into their office. What was it like to be, that's dad? Imagine if you didn't get the grade that you wanted and you had to come home and sit down in front of Don Shula, aka Dad, and get some answers there. So that was really cool. But his whole journey, he started as a 23, 24-year-old receivers coach in 1982. And then who lands in his room? Mark Clayton and Mark Duper. So imagine your first job in this league as a position coach, and you get those two guys, and who's throwing to them? Oh, by the way, some young kid named Dan Marino. So just some really cool stuff. And look, anytime you're talking to a Shula, it's amazing. But Dave was really, he shared some great things. He got emotional at times, which I think was a beautiful thing to hear, both as a father now to a Shula who won a Super Bowl with the Rams and his son, Chris, and certainly as a son, and thinking back to when he had to coach against his dad and just never could get it going with the Bengals and has to go run into, not only am I facing dad, but he's the winningest coach in NFL history. So for those who love nostalgia, for those who followed those Dolphin teams, it's just a great interview, and we really enjoyed having Dave on.
Well, go get it today, guys, wherever your podcasts are available. The Fish Tank, Seth Levit joining us here. Appreciate it, man. We'll hear you after the game also this upcoming week. Dolphins, Vikings, week 6. A lot of injuries on the table. Seth, we appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Seth.
I appreciate you guys having me on. And now I think Leroy's starting a tradition. I'm expecting a Jason Taylor Foundation t-shirt every Tuesday when I jump on.
All right.
He's been to enough events.
Yes.
All right, fellas, thank you. You guys are doing great, man. It's an honor to be here with you.
Hey,
All
thanks
right,
for joining
thanks.
us, Seth. We
Appreciate it.
appreciate it, man.